Let's go. Ezras Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Kiddushin Daf Lamed Beis, and we're going to start from the story of Rabbi Yosef. It's about towards the middle of the page, a little after it. Okay, we're in the middle of stories about Kibbud of Ein. So the Gemara is going to tell us a story about Rabbi Yosef who had a Meshigan Mama. Rabbi Yosef, first of all, what we did. I'm sorry, Ravasi Havele Hahi Eimezikena. The Gemara stresses that Rav Asi had an old mother. Okay, Altamama Amrlei. She said to him, "Ba'ina tachshitin. I want you to buy me jewelry." Avidla. So he made for her jewelry. He said, "Ba'ina gavra. I want you to get me a new husband." So he said, "Na'ayin loch. I'm going to look for a new husband for you." Hold on. Hi, Sheldon. Hi, Lewis. We just began. We're on Daf Lamed Beis, Lamed Aleph Lamed Beis by the middle.
Right.
So we're talking about this Rav Asi who had this mother who was somewhat like a little meshiga and demanding, and she said to her son Rav Asi, "I want give me jewelry." He made her jewelry. He says, "Find me a new husband." So he says, "I'm going to go search for a new husband for you." But then she said, "Be'ina gavrach deshape kavasach. I need a guy as great as my own son. In other words, as young as my son. Get me a 24-year-old." Oh, so you can't live with a mother like that. Shavka, he left her. Va'azal Eretz Yisrael. He moved to Eretz Yisrael. He felt that if he would stay around, he would violate the kibbud ein. So it's better to run away because there's more of a chance that he's going to get upset with her. Shama de ka'azla abasre. So he heard that she's coming to Eretz Yisrael. She's moving to Eretz Yisrael because she knows her son is there. So the question is, also the comment of Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan came to Rabbi Yochanan and he said, Amalei Maho, what's the din? Lot says, Eretz to Chutz La'aretz. Can I go from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz to start greeting her? In other words, it might be a dangerous trip, but I'm not going to wait till my mother arrives. I'm going to go to where she is on the road and then help her along the road to get her to Eretz Yisrael. So am I allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to go to Chutz La'aretz? Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan said, Aser. It's Aser. For some reason, he felt that for Rav Asi, he was not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael anymore once he arrived. But then he explained to Rabbi Yochanan, Likras Ima Maho, can I go greet my mother? My mother's on her way here. So I want to leave Eretz Yisrael again to go on to the road, to meet her on the road to bring her here. Amalei, Rabbi Yochanan said, Eini Yadeya, I don't know. Purta, a little while later, Hadar Asi came back again to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, I need a teretz. Amalei, so Rabbi Yochanan told him, Asi, this rates a lot. I see you want to go. Hamokam yachzir chalashlahim. The Baruch Shalom blessed that you have a good trip and come back peacefully. So also the comment of Rabbi Lazar. So Rabbi Asi came to Rabbi Lazar and asked. He couldn't figure out what this message Rabbi Yochanan said. Amalei. So he asked Rabbi Lazar, who was another Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, Chas v'sholem dilma. Martach Rasach. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan was angry, so he said, God should bless you in peace. Don't bother me. Maybe he was angry at me that I asked this question. Amalei, so Rabbi Lazar asked my Amalach, what did he tell you? Amalei, so Rav Asi said, Hamokam yachzir chalasham. God should make you come back in peace. Amalei, so Rabbi Lazar explained Rabbi Yochanan to Rav Asi. If Rabbi Yochanan was very angry with you, he wouldn't give you a blessing. So therefore, you have the blessing of Rabbi Yochanan. You could leave Eretz Yisrael, find your mother on the road, and help her come back to Eretz Yisrael. As he left, while he was on the road, already he left Eretz Yisrael, Shama, he heard from a messenger, that her mother passed away on the road. I guess this trip was too much for her. Omar, he said, if I would have known my mother passed away, I wouldn't have left Eretz Yisrael. I mean, anyway, so the trip wasn't successful anyway. But I think the point of the Gemara is to show that if a person has a very difficult mother, perhaps he should avoid her. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in the Brisa, you should honor your parents while they're alive and honor them while they pass away. B'chayav Ketzav, what's an example of honoring your parents when they're alive? Hanishmid b'divar aviv l'mokim, somebody who needs something on behalf of his father in a certain place. And let's say your father is respected in that place. You shouldn't tell the people, Shalchuni b'shvil atzmi, Maharuni b'shvil atzmi, Pitruni b'shvil atzmi. You shouldn't say, oh, send me because of myself, or let me skip the line because of myself, or let me be exempt from whatever it is because of myself. Because even though they would exempt him and they would follow his instructions because he's asking because of his own honor, Ella, he should rather say, Kula b'shvil Abba, please do it on behalf of my father. If your father is respected in that place, and they would follow, to give you the exceptions based on your father. If your father's not respected in that place, of course, you can say, do it on behalf of myself. How is a person supposed to honor his father after he passes away? If you're saying something over in the name of your father, you shouldn't say, Kach Oma Abba, this is what my father said. Ella, you should say, Kach Oma Abba Moiri. You say, this is what my father, who I'm in awe of, Hareini Makaparas Mishkavai. Anything that's bad that's supposed to happen to him should happen to me. In other words, I should take the fall on his bad things that he's supposed to pay for. And this is during the first 12 months where the father is in Gehenna, so to speak. And therefore he's saying anything that's bad happening to my father should happen to me, as long as my father should be spared. So the Gemara says, this only applies during the first 12 months. When after that, you should say, my father's blessed for a blessing for life in Olam Haba. Or like we say, it's like a shortened way of saying it, but really the right way of saying it is a rabbi is taught. A rabbi who is teaching, right, and they used to have a meturgamon, like somebody who amplifies the speech that he's making. So when he's saying something over about his father, the rabbi who's speaking, called Mashana Shem Av V'Shem Rabbi, he changes the name of his father and the name of his rabbi. In other words, he should say not his father's name, but he should say, my daddy used to say. But Turgamam, but the guy who's amplifying the sound and repeating the speech, he doesn't have to change the name of the father or the name of the rabbi. So the Gemara explains, and the Gemara is going to give a story what this means. Avu Daman, whose father are we talking about? If we're talking about the father of the amplifier, Atu Turgaman Labar Chiyuvihi, is the Turgaman not the amplifier, the person making the speech, amplifying the speech and repeating the speech? He's not under the obligation of Kibbut Av Ve'ein. When you have Kibbut Av, you're not supposed to say your father's name. You're supposed to say daddy. Ella Amar Rava. Rava used to say like this: Shem Aviv Shachacham. It's the name of the father of the person making the speech. Or Shem Rabbi Shachacham. It's the rabbi of the person making the speech. Kaha the Mar Bar Ravashi. Mar, who's the son of Ravashi. Okay, so Ravashi is the dad, and Mar is making the speech. He's a big Talmud Chacham. Ki Havadarish Bepirka. When he would give a speech on Shabbos, Ihu Amar, he would say to the Meturgaman, Abba Mori. Oh, my father Ravashi said such and such. But he wouldn't say, he said, my dad, who I'm in awe of. V'amarei Amar, and the person amplifying the speech would say, Haki Amar Ravashi, this is what Ravashi said. Tanaraban, the rabbis taught, Ezehu Moir ve'ezehu Kibbut. The Torah gives you two things you're supposed to do for your parents: fear them and respect them. Moira, what is Moira? What does it mean fear them? Loy oimid b'mkoime. You're not allowed to stand in their place, which means that if they have a set place in, let's say, in a board of directors meetings where they stand and express their opinions, you're not allowed to stand in that place. In wherever they are, in wherever directors meeting they have, there's a special place for his father. You're not allowed to stand in that place. You're not allowed to sit in his chair, which means even in his house, you're not allowed to sit in his chair. You're not allowed to contradict his words. And you're not going to say, agree with somebody else, or agree with, like if your father's having a debate with somebody, you can't say, oh, I think my father's right. But just by saying, I think my father's right, is like he needed your support to get to be right. So that you're not supposed to do. What is kibbud? And this is very interesting. What is honoring your parents? Usually, we think of honoring your parents as when you're younger. Really, the mitzvah starts when your parents are retired and getting very old. So what does honoring your parents mean? Machal, you give them food. Umashka, you give them to drink. Malbish, you help them get dressed. Umachasa, you cover them when they go to sleep. Machnas, you bring them into wherever, the shul, or moitzi, you take them out of the house. So that's what the real kibbut avein. Ibailu, the question was, on top of the Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, Mishal Mi. When things cost money, who pays for it? Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Mishal Ben. The son has to pay for it. Rav Nosson Bar Aishaya Amar Mishal Ab. That the father has to pay for it. That it comes from the father's bank account. You don't require the son to pay for the expenses. Rabbanan gave a psak to Rav Yirmiyah, to the sons of Rav Yirmiyah. The rabbi said, we paskin like the Mandiyama Mishal Ab. It belongs to the father, that it comes from the father's bank account. Yet, even if it's the father's bank account, and the son doesn't have to lose any money, it means that the son doesn't have to write a check to pay for this. But he has to give up time and even give up profits, the time that he's working, or giving up profits that he could have made in order to mechabed his father. Like you see by Dama ben Esina, he gave up earning a big profit in order not to wake up his father. It's only writing a check. Writing the check, then we paskin that it comes from the father's bank account, not from the son. So the Gemara asks the question, Meisvei, Nemar, it's Pasuk says, Kabas Vich Vesamecha. Nemar, Kabas Hashem Mahainecha. So this Pasuk says that you should honor God from your possessions. Just like when you honor God, you have to write a check. Afkan, that you have to lose money. So, be Amrit Mishalah. But if you're always telling me that Kibbut Ava Ain is from the father, how does this brisa juxtapose kibbut av'ein to being honoring God? That both of them, you have to write the check. But if the money comes from the father, what do you lose? You're not losing any money. The father's paying for this expense. And says the Gemara, like I explained, lebita malacha, that you're losing a profit, or you didn't go to work that day, and so therefore you didn't earn your wages. So that you have to give up, even though the actual expense of what's involved here, the check actually is being paid by the father. Tashma coming here. A father and his son, a rabbi and his student. And here is the point. If they each have Meiser Ani, so a son could give it to his father. If his father's poor and he has Meiser Ani, he can give it to his father. The Amrit Mishal Ben, if you're trying to tell me that normally the son has to give his own money to pay for the father's expenses, then nimsa then you're using matnas aniyim, which otherwise could go to other poor people, and you're using it to pay up your obligation to your father. So how does that work? How could a son give the Meiser Ani money to his father? It's like using your tzedakah money and paying for your lulav and esrog. You have to pay for your lulav and esrog on your own. You can't use tzedakah money, your Meiser money that you can give. So says the Gemara, leitzricha lahadafa. The question is lahadafa. Lahadafa means, let's say your father really has normal living expenses, but he needs extra living expenses because he has more of a desire to live in a higher standard. That money you can pay from matnas aniyim. The original expenses, the regular expenses, you pay from your own pocket. But if he needs extra, then the surplus, then you can use matnas, you can use Meiser Ani. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda was upset. If someone gives his father Meiser Ani, he said he should be cursed. If we're talking about over here surplus, right? He's not really the father's regular expenses are being paid out from the son's bank account, but the extra expenses being paid out from the Meiser Ani. So why should he get cursed? What did he do wrong? Why does Rabbi Yehuda say he should get a curse because he did such a thing? So the Gemara says, it's still degrading for a father to have to come on to his son's Meiser Ani, even for any part of his living expenses, even if it's surplus. Tashma, come in here. They asked Rabbi Lezer, how far is kibbut avein? What's the extent? What's the limit of a kibbut avein? He said like this: he could take presumably your purse. If your mother or father takes your purse, and throws it into the ocean in front of you, and you don't humiliate your father for doing such a crazy thing. But if it's the purse belonged to your father, so why should you insult your father if he's taking his own purse and throwing it out into the And for the Gemara, it's a type of purse that you would have gotten it in an inheritance. Now he's throwing away your inheritance. So that's also bothers you. If you don't humiliate your father for what he's doing, that is one of the extreme limits of kibbud av v'eim. No matter in other words, extreme limits of kibbud av v'eim is where it really, really gets to your emotions, and it really disturbs you what your parents are doing. That's the limit of kibbud av v'eim. Yihad Rabba Rav Huna, like the case of Rabba Rav Huna. Rabba was the son of Rav Huna. So the Rav Huna, Kare Shirai Ba'ampe Rabba Brei. Rav Kahuna ripped up the most expensive suit he had in front of Rabba, his son. Now, normally a suit was inherited by a son after the father passed away. So Rav Huna wanted to test his son to see if he has this limit of kibbud av v'eim. So he wanted to rip his suit in front of Rabba, his son, and now Rabba is not going to get this suit as an inheritance. Amar, Rav Huna's thinking was, Ezel echse irasach iloi rasach. I want to see if he's going to get angry or not get angry. Because if he gets angry, because he's going to get angry because he's not going to be able to inherit that suit. Says the Gemara, maybe he'll get angry at his father. He's going to be over that Rav Huna caused his son to violate the mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim, because now the son Rabba is going to get angry at his father, and his father was just testing him out. And if he violates kibbud av, the avera goes to Rav Huna, and says the Gemara, "Demochale liikare." He forgave his son in advance. He said, "If my son will get angry, I'm not going to be upset." Says the Gemara, then how did he rip the suit? Wasting a suit. And it says Gemara, he ripped the suit by the seams, which it could easily be repaired. So the Gemara says, if he ripped it in such a place that it could easily be repaired, maybe that's why Rabbah didn't get angry, because it was a place that it could be easily repaired. And for the Gemara, the Avad B'Shas Rizcha, he ripped the suit in front of Rabbah when Rabbah was in a very bad mood. So he's not going to pay attention to the way the suit was ripped, and he's going to think that my father is destroying my inheritance by ripping up his great suit. And nevertheless, Rabbah probably passed the test, and he did not get angry at his father. Masdila Rav Cheskel Rami Brei. Rav Cheskel taught to Rami his son, or Rabbi Yehuda his son. That's really supposed to be. We're learning something, how to talk to your father when your father makes a mistake in learning. Now the Gemara gives you an example. There's a bright Rav Cheskel was teaching his son, and he learned the brisa that says, Hanisrafim badiskolim. Let's say people who are chayiv sreifa got mixed up with a majority of people who are chayiv skila. Right? The Bezdin mixed up the people in jail, and they mixed up the people who are chayiv sreifa with the people who are chayiv skila. So the question is, what do? You have to give the easier misa. You can't give them the harder misa, because maybe the easier death is going to get the harder death. So Rab Shimon, you don't need skila. Get everybody skila. Shasreifa chamura. Sreifa is much more severe. So give everybody skila. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Breis. Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Cheskel, to his father, Abba, you're learning it wrong. Why? My ear is Sefer Chamura. Why does the Rab Shimon say that the reason why you give everybody skila because Sefer is much more severe? Typically, the Ruben Niskolim here. The case that you brought was Hanisrafim ben Niskolim, that the people who got Sreifa got mixed up with a majority of skila. So even without Sreifa being more severe, most people in that group that got mixed up were chayiv skila. That's why they get skila. This is the way you should read the brisa. Haniskolim banisrafim. You have to when the roiv was nisrafim. Majority of people was the burnt. The guys got chayiv sreifa. The minority was people chayiv skila. So most of the people, if you go after roiv, you would give them skila. You would give them sreifa. And therefore, Reb Shimon said, no, you give them skila because skila is the easier one. Amalei, if that's the case, Rav Cheskel said, if that's the way you're learning the brisa, that it's niskalim ba'anisrafim, the majority is the sreifa people. Why do Chachamim say that everybody gets sreifa? Because skila is more severe. Our area is skila chamira. Who cares if skila is more severe? If most of the people are sreifa people, typically the Ruben is Rafin inu. So most of them are sreifa people. Amalei, so Rabbi Yehuda answered, Hasa Rabbanu to come later Shimon. It's Rabbanan telling Rab Shimon, Duka Amr Sreifa Chamura. If you're telling us Sreifa is Chamura, I'm going to tell you Skila Chamura. Skila is much more severe, but it's not that the case changes that the Rabbanim are changing the case, or the case is different. The case is wrong the way Rabbi Cheskel learned it. So basically, Rabbi Yehuda told his father, listen, Rabbi, my father, you learned the Mishnayos wrong. You have the wrong girsa in the Mishnayos. Amalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, so Shmuel, who is a friend or a rabbi of Rabbi Yehuda, says, Shinina, my sharp one. Rabbi Yehuda was a sharp guy. That's not the respect to talk to your father that way. If your father makes a mistake in learning, you should say it in a different way. The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, if your father was transgressing something on the Torah, Al Yoima, don't tell him, Abba Avat Torah, my father, you transgressed the Torah. You don't tell your father that. You tell him, Abba, my father, the Torah says this, not what you're doing. You're doing it wrong, because the Torah says this. You're supposed to say to your father, this is what's written in the Torah. So Uri then you're causing your father stress. The following way is you're supposed to say it. Abba, father, Mikra Kasab'Torah Kach. There's a pasuk in Chumash like this. And that's it. And let your father figure out on his own if he did something wrong or not, but not telling, oh, you're doing opposite of what the Torah said. So there's a certain way to deal with your father if he's making a mistake in learning. Lazar ben Masi Oima, right? The Brisa continues. Lazar ben Masi says, let's say at the same time that your father says, give me a drink of water, there's somebody who died and you have to bury them, or you have to do a Shabbos Aveda or something like that. So what should you do? Don't give your father the water, do the mitzvah. Because you and your father have to do that mitzvah. So if there's a mitzvah of burying a person, you have to do the mitzvah of burying the person, and there's you push off doing the mitzvah of kibbut av. Isi ben Yehuda says, if somebody else could do the mitzvah, let somebody else do this mitzvah. Let somebody else, be part of that salah, the Chevra Kedisha. You deal with your father. Halach is like a Yisuf ben Yehuda. Don't pick a mitzvah and push off the mitzvah of kibbut av. Kibbut av takes priority. Rav Chizda said like this. Let's say your father's putting on his coat, and you want to help him put on the coat, and your father says, leave me alone, I can do it myself. The din is if your father forgives you for his honor is forgiven, because really he doesn't want to help you to put on his coat. He wants to feel independent. So that's he can do that. But if your rabbi wants to be moichel on his kaveh, he wants to forgive you for honoring him. His honor is not forgiven. It means you still have to. You don't listen to what the rabbi wants. You actually help the rabbi with his coat. Rav Yosef says, if a rabbi forgives his honor is forgiven. The pasuk says, that God went in front of the Jewish people and led them out of Egypt. So we see that God, who should not, who's like our rabbi, a teacher, he was Michael on his covet and actually was leading us when we left Mitzrayim. Rava said, how could you compare that? How could you compare God? The Kadosh Baruch Hu, it's his world, the Torah delay. And the Torah is his honor. He could forgive his honor. We go to Amud Beis. But here, the reason why a rabbi who says, you don't have to do it for me, we don't listen to him because Torah delay you. You're honoring the Torah that the rabbi learned. And it's not his Torah to offer forgiveness. He can't forgive Torah. Torah is just within him, but it's not his to give. The honor is not his to forgive. Rava said yes. And when a person learns Torah, it's not that the Torah is separate from him, and therefore it's not his Torah. Torah delay you. It's the Torah belongs to the person who learned it. The Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, in his Torah, you're going to learn in other words, it says originally before you learn it's Torah Hashem. But after you meditate and becomes you acquire it, it becomes your Torah. So if it's your Torah, the rabbi's Torah is the rabbi's Torah, and therefore it belongs to the rabbi. He could forgive it. So we see a rabbi could be moichel on his kavod. It says Gemara, it's not true. The custom was that when you make a wedding, you're the one that gives everybody a drink of whiskey, right? So Rava, when he was making a chasana for his son, he was going around giving everybody a drink. But Dale Kasen, he poured a cup. Rav Papa Rav Huna. For Rav Papa Rav Huna bereid Rav Yeshuva, v'kamim mekame. And they got up when Rav Rava came to their table. They didn't, have them pour the cup. They stood up as Rava came, and Rava poured a mashka into their cups. Rav Mori, Rav Pinchas, when he came to the table of Rav Mori and Rav Pinchas, bereid Rav Chizda, loy kamim kame. They didn't get up for him. Ikbit, so Rava was angry, and he said, "Why didn't you get up for me?" V'amar, he said, "Hani Rabbanan, you consider yourself rabbis, therefore you don't want to get up for me." Hani Rabbanan, the ones that got up for me, which was Rav Papa and Rav Huna, they're not rabbis, so that's why they got up for me. You also should have gotten up for me. Vesu, another case, Rav Papa, same idea. Rav Papa was giving drinks to everybody in the wedding of Abba Mar, his son. And he poured a cup of wine for Rabbi Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, during the wedding. He didn't get up and show respect. The Ikbit, Rav Papa was upset. So why are they upset? Didn't we learn before a rabbi can be moichel on his kavod? So why were the Rava and Rav Papa all upset that they didn't? The people that they poured wine to did not stand up for him. Says the Gemara, you have to show that they have to make an attempt, like as if they're standing up. In other words, by not standing up and sitting relaxed, it's almost like you're degrading the Torah. So there's something in between. He didn't expect them to get up because Rav Papa and Rava were moichel on their kavod, but they did expect that the people that they were pouring the cup of wine to should make the motion as if they're getting up. Amar Rav Ashi says, even according to the opinion, even a rabbi can make could be moichel on his kavod. Notzi shemachal al kavod, and the president of the Bezdin, if he wants to moichel on his kavod, his kavod is not forgiven. A nasi cannot do it. The head of the Supreme Court, Meisvei, comes to a question like this. Maisa, we learned this story. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Tzaddik, all these Tanoim, they were, again, by the wedding of the son of Rabbi Gamliel. Now, Rabbi Gamliel is the Nasi of the Bezdin, right? He's the president of the Bezdin. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel was giving wine to everybody for coming to his wedding. He gave the cup to Rabbi Lazar and he didn't take it because he felt it's not respectful for Rabbi Gamliel to pour him a cup of wine. The son of Rabbi Shua, he gave to Rabbi Shua, but Rabbi Shua accepted it fine. Amalei Rabbi Lazar says, Yeshua, what are you accepting this? We're going to sit, Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel is going to give us to drink. Rabbi Gamliel is the Nasi. You can't have him pour for you. Amalei, Rabbi Yeshua said, why? Somebody greater than Rabbi Gamliel was actually the waiter. Where do we see in the Torah somebody was a waiter? Avram Gadol Hadarhaya. Avram was the prince, the Kosa boy, and it says, he was standing and serving, he was waitering for the people that came to visit him. Maybe you want to say to Avram, the reason why he was serving them is because he thought they appeared to him like angels. So he knew they were on a higher level than him. So no, not true. No, not true. They appeared to him because he was washing their feet. So he thought they were Arabs. And nevertheless, Avram was waitering to them. So if Avram could do it, right? Avram could do it, and the Torah is supposed to teach you things that even Rabbi Gamliel could do it for us. There's nothing wrong to having Rabbi Gamliel serve us. And presumably that if Rabbi Gamliel is serving them, he was moichel on his kavod. So the Gemara finishes off, this is a good way to end off our Gemara. The Gemara is ending off. Your proof is from Avraham Avinu waitering for the Arabs that came to visit him. That's a proof that a gadol could sometimes waiter for somebody who's smaller. But you don't have to bring a proof from Avraham Avinu. You can bring a proof from God Himself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mashav Ruach. He brings wind, and He brings the clouds wherever it needs to rain. And He brings down the rains. He causes the earth to sprout forth produce. This is beautiful. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the parnasa specifically for each and every individual. It is a certain hashkacha pratis that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is monitoring exactly what belongs for every human on planet Earth. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself is busy with you, me, and everybody here. So therefore, who's greater than God Himself? So shouldn't we have Rabbi Gamliel, who's a great president of the Sanhedrin, certainly there's nothing wrong with having him serve us if he wants to do that. Ella, finally, the Gemara concludes, Itma hachi itma. The following statement is the halacha. Amar Rav Ashi said, if you learned that a nasi could moichel on his kavod, even if you learned that way, that's by a nasi. But the highest level of authority in the Jewish world is a melech, a king. Melech shemachal kavoidei ain't kavoidei machal. The melech that was forgive his sins is kavoidei is not forgiven. Because a melech represents the people, the kingdom is given to him as a gift from God and an appointment from God, and he cannot forgive it. So he cannot say to the people, you don't have to stand up. If he walks into the room, we don't listen to him. Everybody has to stand up and show him respect. The pasuk says, that God said, put onto you a king, and that means no matter what, his awe should be on you, and there's no way that could be bypassed, even if he says it's okay. Okay, have everybody a good Rosh Hashanah.
Excellent. Thanks.